Hello, guys. It's Miss Checka. Oh, fun! I see Monse. That's very exciting. Hi, honey. Today we have holes. Nope, that's the wrong book. That's crossover. Today we have holes, Lewis Sacker, and we're going to start on chapter 11. So, I hope you guys had a weekend. I discovered this weekend that I love to eat broccoli roasted. So that's exciting. Okay, chapter 11. Stanley returned to his hole. It wasn't fair. Mr. Pendanski had even said his fossil was interesting. He slammed his shovel into the ground and pried up another piece of earth. After a while, he noticed X-Ray had come by and was watching him dig. Oh, there's Tess. Hi, Tess. Hey, caveman, let me talk to you a second, X-Ray said. Stanley put down his shovel and stepped up out of his hole. Say, listen, said X-Ray. If you find something else, give it to me, okay? Stanley wasn't sure what to say. X-Ray was clearly the leader of the group, and Stanley didn't want to get on his bad side. You're new here, right? Said X-Ray. Well, I've been here almost a year. I've never found anything. You know, my eyesight's not so good. No one knows this, but you know why my name's X-Ray? Stanley shrugged one shoulder. It's Pig Latin for Rex. That's all. I'm too blind to find anything. Stanley tried to remember how Pig Latin worked. I mean, X-Ray went on. Why should you get a day off when you've only been here a couple of days? If anybody gets a day off, it should be me. That's only fair, right? I guess, Stanley agreed. X-Ray smiled. You're a good guy, caveman. Okay, so let's review just a little bit. Stanley has been given these instructions that are not very clear, right? So he knows he's supposed to be digging holes, but he doesn't know why or what he's looking for. And then they told him, if you find anything interesting, you have to report it. And then he did. And Mr. Pendanski said it was interesting. He even used the word interesting. But then it was like, that's not what we mean. So now we know he's not just digging for something. He's digging for something specific. He just doesn't know what it is. That's one thing. And then two, man, I haven't done Pig Latin in a long time. So let me think. I think it would be, oh, sorry, my phone's ringing. It would be like, if I was going to say book, I would say Oak-Ray, right? So X-Ray's name is a little bit ironic. Stop ringing phone. I'm scared if I hit it, then it's going to pick. There we go. All right. Stanley picked up his shovel. The more he thought about it, the more he was glad that he agreed to let X-Ray have anything he might find. If he was going to survive at Camp Green Lake, it was far more important that X-Ray think he was a good guy than it was for him to get one day off. Besides, he didn't expect to find anything. There probably wasn't anything of interest out there. And even if there was, he'd never been what you would call lucky. Phone, stop. Oh, hi, Humana. He slammed his blade into the ground and then dumped out another shovel full of dirt. It was a little surprising, he thought, that X-Ray was the leader of the group, since he obviously wasn't the biggest or the toughest. In fact, except for Zero, X-Ray was the smallest. Armpit was the biggest. Zigzag may have been taller than Armpit, but that was only because of his neck. Yet Armpit and all of the others seemed to be willing to do whatever X-Ray asked of them. And that happens too in real life, right? Sometimes you're not the biggest, but maybe you're the bossiest. As Stanley dug up another shovel full of dirt, it occurred to him that Armpit wasn't the biggest. He, Caveman, was bigger. He was glad they called him Caveman. It meant they accepted him as a member of the group. He would have been glad even if they'd called him Barfbag. It was really quite remarkable to him. At school, bullies like Derek Dunn used to pick on him. Yet Derek Dunn would be scared senseless by any of the boys here. As he dug his hole, Stanley thought about what it would be like if Derek Dunn had to fight Armpit or Squid. Derek wouldn't stand a chance. He imagined what it would be like if he became good friends with all of them. And then for some reason, they all went with him to his school. And then Derek Dunn tried to steal his notebook. So this is him imagining that. Just what do you think you're doing? Asks Squid as he slams his hands into Derek Dunn's smug face. Caveman's our friend, says Armpit, grabbing him by the shirt collar. Stanley played the scene over and over again in his mind, each time watching another boy from Group D beat up Derek Dunn. It helped him dig his hole and ease his own suffering. Whatever pain he felt was being felt 10 times worse by Derek. So, sometimes we all have little fantasies like this where we picture people that we don't like at school getting in trouble, all kinds of things. And in Stanley's case, he's also having the fantasy of having a group of friends. So now we are on chapter 12, and this is page 55. Again, Stanley. Oh, I was also going to ask if anybody has nicknames, because all of the boys in this group have really, really crazy nicknames. I had all kinds of nicknames when I was a kid. One of them was Walking Dictionary, because I really liked to read books and I had a really big vocabulary. Okay. And hold on just a second, because, no, I'm just going to do it. Chapter 12. Again, Stanley was the last one to finish digging. It was in the late afternoon when he dragged himself back to the compound. This time, he would have accepted a ride on the truck if it was offered. When he got to the tent, he found Mr. Pendanski and the other boys sitting in a circle on the ground. Hello, Stanley, said Mr. Pendanski. Hello, caveman. You got to get your hole dug? Asked Magnet. He managed to nod. You spit in it? Asked Squid. He nodded again. You're right, he said to X-Ray. The second hole's the hardest. X-Ray shook his head. The third hole's the hardest, he said. Come join our circle, said Mr. Pendanski. Stanley plopped down between Squid and Magnet. He needed to rest up before taking a shower. What's going on here? Top? Top is your nickname, Tess. I like that. And Christian Alexander, no, that's not how we resolve our differences. We use our words. Okay. We've been discussing what we want to do with our lives, said Mr. Pendanski. We're not going to be at Camp Green Lake forever. We need to prepare for the day we leave here and join the rest of society. Hey, that's great, Mom, said Magnet. They're going to finally let you out of here? The other boys laughed. Okay, Jose, said Mr. Pendanski. What do you want to do with the rest of your life? I don't know, said Magnet. Well, you need to think about that, said Mr. Pendanski. It's important to have goals. Otherwise, you're going to end up right back in jail. What do you like to do? I don't know, said Magnet. Well, you must like something, said Mr. Pendanski. I like animals, said Magnet. Good, said Mr. Pendanski. Does anyone know of any jobs that involve animals? Veterinarian, said Armpit. That's right, said Mr. Pendanski. He could work in a zoo, said Zigzag. He belongs in a zoo, said Squid. Then he and X-Ray laughed. Well, how about you, Stanley? Any ideas for Jose? Stanley sighed. I don't know. Animal trainer, he said. Like for the circus or movies or something like that. Any of those jobs sound good to you, Jose? Asked Mr. Pendanski. Yeah, I like what Caveman said about training animals for movies. I think that it would be fun to train monkeys. X-Ray laughed. Don't laugh, Rex, said Mr. Pendanski. We don't laugh at people's dreams. Someone is going to have to train monkeys for the movies. Who are you kidding, Mom? Said X-Ray. Magnet's never going to be a monkey trainer. You don't know that, said Mr. Pendanski. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. Nothing in life is easy. But that's no reason to give up. You'd be surprised what you can accomplish if you set your mind to it. After all, you only have one life, so you should try and make the most of it. Stanley tried to figure out what he'd say if Mr. Pendanski asked him what he wanted to do with his life. He used to think that he wanted to work for the FBI, but this didn't seem like the appropriate place to mention that. So far, you've all done a pretty good job at messing up your lives, said Mr. Pendanski. I know you think you're cool. He looked at Stanley. So, you're a caveman now? Caveman? You like digging holes, caveman? Stanley didn't know what to say. Well, let me tell you something, caveman. You are here on account of one person. If it wasn't for that person, you wouldn't be digging holes in the hot sun. You know who that person is? My no good, dirty, rotten, pig stealing great-great-grandfather? The other boys howled with laughter. Even Zero smiled. It was the first time Stanley had ever seen Zero smile. He usually had such an angry expression on his face. Now he had such a huge smile, it almost seemed too big for his face, like the smile on a jack-o'-lantern. No, said Mr. Pendanski, that person is you, Stanley. You're the reason you are here. You're responsible for yourself. You messed up your life, and it's up to you to fix it. No one else is going to do it for you, for any of you. Mr. Pendanski looked from one boy to another. You're all special in your own way, he said. You've all got something to offer. You have to think about what you want to do and then do it. Even you, Zero, you're not completely worthless. The smile was now gone from Zero's face. What do you want to do with your life? Mr. Pendanski asked him. Zero's mouth was shut tight. As he glared at Mr. Pendanski, his dark eyes seemed to expand. What about it, Zero? asked Mr. Pendanski. What do you like to do? I like to dig holes. So Mr. Pendanski, right? He's the counselor and he's supposed to be helping them like work through their feelings and such. But I think Mr. Pendanski, he's not 100% nice, right? Because it sounds like he's saying all of the good adult things about taking responsibility and having goals and whatever. But he's one of those people that manages to say something nice in like a very insulting way, right? So it sounds nice and you're like, oh, Zero, you should have dreams and plans and whatever. But when you say it like you're not totally worthless, well, it just hurts his feelings, right? And Zero just doubles down into it and is stubborn and says, like, I just want to do holes. Chapter 13. All too soon, Stanley was back out at the lake, sticking his shovel into the dirt. X-Ray was right. The third hole was the hardest. So was the fourth hole and the fifth hole and the sixth hole and He dug his shovel into the dirt. After a while, he lost track of the day of the week and how many holes he dug. It all seemed like one big hole, and it would take 1.5 years to dig it. He guessed he'd lost at least 5 pounds. He figured that in 1.5 years, he'd either be in great physical condition or dead. He dug his shovel into the dirt. It couldn't always be this hot, he thought. Surely it got cooler in December. Maybe then they froze. He dug his shovel into the dirt. His skin had gotten tougher. It didn't hurt so much to hold the shovel. As he drank from his canteen, he looked up at the sky. A cloud had appeared earlier in the day. It was the first cloud he could remember seeing since coming to Camp Green Lake. He and the other boys had been watching it all day, hoping it would move in front of the sun. Occasionally it got close, but it was just teasing them. His hole was waist deep. He dug his shovel into the dirt. As he dumped it out, he thought he saw something glisten as it fell onto the dirt pile. Whatever it was quickly buried. Stanley stared at the pile a moment, unsure if he'd even seen it. Even if it was something, what good would it do him? He'd promised to give anything he found to X-Ray. It didn't seem worth the effort to climb out of his hole to check it out. He glanced up at the cloud, which was close enough to the sun that he had to squint to look at it. He dug his shovel back into the earth, scooped out some dirt, and lifted it over his dirt pile. But instead of dumping it there, he tossed it off to the side. His curiosity had gotten to the better of him. He climbed up out of his hole and sifted his fingers through the pile. He felt something hard and metallic. He pulled it out. It was a gold tube, about as long and as wide as the second finger on his right hand. The tube was open at one end and closed at the other. He used a few drops of his precious water to clean it. There seemed to be some kind of design on the flat, closed end. He poured a few more drops of water on it and rubbed it on the inside of his pants pocket. He looked again at the design engraved into the flat bottom of the tube. He could see an outline of a heart with the letters KB etched into it. And just in case you do not have the book at home, this is what it looks like, KB. He tried to figure out some way that he wouldn't have to give it to X-Ray. He could just keep it, but that wouldn't do him any good. He wanted a day off. He looked at the large piles of dirt near where X-Ray was digging. X-Ray was probably almost finished for the day. Getting the rest of the day off would hardly do him much good. X-Ray would first have to show the tube to Mr. Sir or Mr. Pendanski, who would then have to show it to the warden. By then, X-Ray might be done anyway. Stanley wondered about trying to secretly take the tube directly to the warden. He could explain the situation to the warden, and the warden might make up an excuse for giving him the day off so X-Ray wouldn't suspect. He looked across the lake toward the cabin under the 2 oak trees. The place scared him. He'd been at Camp Green Lake almost 2 weeks, and he still hadn't seen the warden. That was just as well. If he could go his entire year and a half without seeing the warden, that would be fine with him. Besides, he didn't know if the warden would find the tube interesting. He looked at it again. It looked familiar. He thought he'd seen something like it somewhere before, but he couldn't quite place it. "What you got there, caveman?" asked Zigzag. Okay, I'm going to pause for a little second. So number 1, Christian Alexander, I need you to be a better example on here. Tess, you may not be using your words to cut other people down, but to work things out. Having said that, let's talk about Stanley and his dilemma with X-Ray, right? So on the one hand, X-Ray just wants him to give up anything that he finds, which is a little bit like somebody taking, your lunch money, right? Like, give me your quarter for ice cream or whatever. So that's not a nice thing to do. It's, basically making somebody give you something that does not belong to you and they don't want to give you voluntarily. So in that sense, Stanley shouldn't feel any obligation to give him anything. On the other hand, same KB. Okay, I see that. But on the other hand, Stanley did say, like he told him, I'm gonna give this to you. So now he has this problem, right? So you can tell that he's already rationalizing in his mind how he can weasel out of not giving it to X-Ray. Like, it's not really going to benefit X-Ray as much as it would benefit him. So Stanley has a little bit of a dilemma there. And I'm curious to know what you would do in that situation. Would you have maybe not told X-Ray in the first place that you would give it to him and kind of risk a confrontation? Once you told him you would give it to him, would you give it to him? So it's like a tricky situation that Stanley is trying to navigate here. And Stanley is not a person who likes confrontation a lot. And here we have our answer. "What you got there, caveman?" asked Zigzag. Stanley's large hand closed around the tube. "Nothing, just, it was useless. I think I might have found something. Another fossil? No, I'm not sure what it is." "Let me see," said Zigzag. Instead of showing it to Zigzag, Stanley brought it to X-Ray. Zigzag followed. X-Ray looked at the tube, then rubbed his dirty glasses on his dirty shirt and looked at the tube again. One by one, the other boys dropped their shovels and came to look. "Looks like an old shotgun shell," said Squid. "Yeah, that's probably what it is," said Stanley. He decided not to mention the engraved design. Maybe nobody would notice it. He doubted X-Ray could see it. "No, it's too long and thin to be a shotgun shell," said Magnet. "It's probably just a piece of junk," said Stanley. Well, I'll show it to Mom," said X-Ray. And remember, Mom is the nickname for Mr. Pendanski. See what he thinks. Who knows? Maybe I'll get the day off. Your hole's almost finished, said Stanley. Yeah, so? Stanley raised and lowered his shoulder. So why don't you wait until tomorrow to show it to Mom? He suggested. You can pretend you found it first thing in the morning. Then you can get the whole day off instead of just an hour in the afternoon. X-Ray smiled. Good thinking, caveman. He dropped the tube into his large pocket on the right leg of his dirty orange pants. Stanley returned to his hole. When the water truck came, Stanley started to take his place at the end of the line, but X-Ray told him to get behind Magnet in front of Zero. Stanley moved up one place in line. Okay, so that is the end of chapter 13. Tomorrow, as promised, we're going to go into the garden and get an update in how all of the vegetable plants are doing. And then on Wednesday, we'll start up on chapter 14 again. So I had a super good time with you guys. I hope that you had one as well. And I see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.